I believe, are of the Prime Minister who's just wrapped up his short visit to the UAE. Remember, this comes after he wrapped up his two-day tour in France. So the Prime Minister now concluding his UAE visit as well, where there was a lot of focus on trade and energy. MOUs were signed as well. Earlier in the day, we'd seen how a ceremonial welcome was given for the Prime Minister. This, of course, is being seen as the next crucial chapter between ties between the UAE and India. As I pointed out, there was a joint statement that we brought to you earlier in the day as well. There were bilateral talks that were held between both the leaders. MOUs were put forward as well. So first, the Prime Minister wrapping the France tour and now wrapping his short UAE visit and now making his way back to India. Let's also now bring in our colleague Abhishek Jha, who in fact is now joining us on the broadcast. Abhishek, so it was a short visit, but an important one. MOUs were signed, focused on trade and energy. Talk to us about the big takeaways of the Prime Minister's visit to the UAE.
Of course, we saw how, even if it was a short visit, it was given a due importance by the UAE leadership. Also, he was received by the Prime Minister, and he did get a ceremonial welcome on his arrival at Al Qasr Al Watan in Abu Dhabi. This is a rare palatial, ceremonial place, which is accorded to only special guests of UAE. And he was welcomed by UAE President Mohamed bin Zayed, and they had a conversation which went on to, discussing a lot of issues, bilateral issues, including several MOUs which have been signed now, MOUs in the sector of edutech, fintech, climate change, energy security, food security. We have also seen now rupees, the bilateral trade between India and UAE will be done in rupees, and for this an arrangement has been signed between RBI and its counterpart in UAE. Also, Prime Minister has held a productive meeting with COP28, which is going to happen in Abu Dhabi. Its president designate and National Oil Company Group CEO Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber. So the two sides did discuss about the upcoming challenges on the issue of climate change, on the issue of energy transition, how the dependence on fossil fuels should be reduced, at the same time not dampening the growth momentum of several countries, especially the developing countries which have been dependent on fossil fuel and they don't have the necessary investment or technical or expertise to shift their overall energy base onto renewable energy sector. So these are the areas that the two sides have discussed. And it was Prime Minister's fifth visit, so a regular engagement that Prime Minister have emphasized with Gulf countries, and this was symbolic of that also.
Abhishek, I quickly just want to talk to you about something that you also touched upon, which was the agreement on trade settlement in currencies of both countries. In terms of what it reflects, this is what we heard from the Prime Minister, that it reflects strong economic cooperation and trust. How are both the countries seeing this as the next chapter in relations between both the nations?
There are two aspects of this agreement. First, of course, that the rupee transaction will give some leverage to the countries having a bilateral trade that will be cheaper and more convenient for both the countries rather than doing it in dollar, which is a third nation currency. At the same time, it also signifies how important, how robust, and how reliable Indian currency has become in the global currency market. Because unless a country has the trust that this rupee or the holding or the stock of rupee can sustain or will not devalue it suddenly in the next 10 years or 8 years, they would not want to have a transactional deal in terms of rupees. Because, if the currency devalues suddenly by 10%, 20%, it will certainly have adverse impact on the
Abhishek, I just apologize for interrupting. Just stay on with us. We're getting a reaction coming in from the Foreign Secretary as well. Let's listen into that.
G is on a very important visit to UAE. He arrived here earlier this morning and was received at the airport by His Highness the Crown Prince. After his arrival, Honorable Prime Minister has held extensive discussions with His Highness the President of the UAE. The visit is of tremendous strategic significance for many reasons. First and foremost, it showcases, underscores the deep bond of friendship and trust between the Honorable Prime Minister and the President of the UAE. As you would be aware, India and the UAE, under the guidance of the two leaders, had signed the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement last year. And since the signing of that important strategic landmark agreement between the two countries, the trade and economic partnership and engagement has grown significantly between the two countries. The visit this time puts together another pillar of that strategic economic partnership in a couple of important ways. Firstly, the two leaders witnessed today an exchange of important agreements, one of them being on the settlement of trade settlement in local currencies. The second of them being interlinking the payment and the messaging systems of the two countries. What it essentially does is puts together important segments of the ecosystem in economic engagement that brings about ever-increasing greater strategic economic convergence between the economies of India and the UAE. It reduces the transaction time, it reduces the transaction cost, it essentially ensures an enormous ease of business at the level of trade between the two countries. And if one was to combine that with the benefits that are already accruing to the two economies from the last year's CEPA, you will see that the agreement signed today will be of great significance. Similarly, the linking up of the payment and the messaging systems of the two countries will add another dimension to our greater economic convergence and also brings together the synergies, harnesses the synergies between the two economies. In many ways, looking forward, looking ahead, the visit today will perhaps open up new pathways for India to look at structuring a similar partnership with other countries, both in the region and beyond. Linking up of the payment and the messaging systems of the two countries, and as I said, expanding another important layer, which is the field of education cooperation between the two countries. Prime Minister would depart for India shortly, but this has been, although a short, but a very, very significant visit, a landmark in the partnership between India and the UAE.
There we heard from the Foreign Secretary Vinay Kwatra also detailing why this short visit was crucial on multiple levels and what this means as far as ties between both the countries are concerned. So we're getting visuals of the Prime Minister who's just departed for India after concluding first a 2-day trip to France, where he was the chief guest for the Bastille Parade, and then a short visit to the UAE. As far as the visit to the UAE is concerned, we did see a tweet that came in from the Prime Minister earlier in the day, and this is what the tweet said. Had a very productive meeting with Dr. Sultan, the President-designate of COP28 UAE. Our discussions focused on ways to further sustainable development, highlighted India's contribution in this direction, in particular our emphasis on mission life. So India also highlighting in terms of how this visit was important. As we pointed out, it was a short visit, but multiple MOUs that were signed that came forward from both the countries. The Prime Minister met the President of the UAE, Sheikh Mohamed Al Nahyan, and held bilateral talks. Following his bilateral talks with the UAE President, the Prime Minister said India and UAE have agreed to start trade settlement in local currencies. Energy, food security, defense are expected to be the focus areas as far as the next chapter between both the countries are concerned. As I pointed out, remember the Prime Minister's visit to UAE comes after a successful 2-day visit to Paris, where he joined French President Emmanuel Macron at the Bastille Parade.